This program is brought to you by Suffolk University. Please visit us on the web at www.suffolk.edu.
My name is John Nucci, and I'm Vice President for Government and Community Affairs at Suffolk University. And it's my duty here to welcome you. It's my pleasure here to welcome you to this exciting discussion and the first of a series of what promises to be an exciting discussion about the future of the city of Boston. That series being called Building Boston 2030. We are fortunate this morning to be joined by a distinguished panel, and I'd like to acknowledge a couple of people who did so much work to put together this program. First, from Suffolk University, Richard Taylor, who has been with us for a number of years now and has focused on real estate, has focused on sustainable growth here in the city of Boston. Richard, just wave your hand. Suffolk is very fortunate also to be engaged in a very productive partnership with the Greater Boston Real Estate Board. And you'll hear from Greg Vassell in a couple of minutes, but I want to especially thank him for working with us to bring these types of discussions to all of us. Boston has been Suffolk University's home for a long, long time, about 105 years. And it's one of the greatest strengths that Suffolk University has, to be located in such a vibrant and exciting city. But we also know, having been here for 105 years, that Boston is ever-changing. The challenges change. The things before us, the economy, the people, the business climate. It is not stagnant. It is always moving. We have been very fortunate in this city to have leaders in the public sector and the private sector that have had the vision to keep up with those changes and to be ahead of those changes. We've been very fortunate over the last 16 or 17 years to have a mayor in Tom Menino who has had the vision to see where Boston is going. Sometimes, as I've heard my good friend Peter Mead say, to see things that others don't see. And he's successfully done that and put us in a position where we can take advantage of those changes. Our role, among many in Boston at Suffolk University, is to meet the needs of our students, to expand where we can expand, to bring them the types of facilities they deserve. And we struggle, and we try very hard to do that in a way that meets those needs of our students, but also in a way that helps to revitalize and bring energy and vitality to the neighborhoods around us. Witness the historic theater district right down on Lower Washington Street and what has happened to that area in the last couple of years through the work of institutions like Suffolk and, of course, Emerson College. So we, too, try to stay ahead of the changes. We also, as an academic institution, try to assemble thinkers and leaders to help us all understand where Boston is going and what it's going to be like. And this morning is certainly a good example of that. So thanks to all, on behalf of our acting president, Barry Brown, and our board of trustees. Thanks to all of you who are here this morning to participate in this discussion. And it's my pleasure to introduce, for a couple of brief comments, Greg Vassell, the CEO of the Greater Boston Real Estate Board.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to thank you for coming. I'd like to thank our distinguished panel. And more importantly, I'd love to thank our sponsors. Suffolk University, we've forged a wonderful partnership in the real estate world with Suffolk, and we're going to continue to develop and grow that. And the Boston Business Journal, George, thank you so much for participating on our panel. The BBJ is at the forefront of reporting in this city, and we thank them very much for being part of this. The Greater Boston Real Estate Board, for folks that don't know, is an 8,000-member real estate trade association. It's the oldest real estate trade association in America, founded in 1889 here. And we encompass both commercial and residential interests. We've had a great history of education and stewardship in the city of Boston. And as John touched on in his remarks, we look to continue and grow that as time goes on. We plan 2 more programs with Suffolk in 2012 at the Modern Theater, which will be on interesting and cutting issues that both intersect economic development and real estate. gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator today, Peter Howe of New England Cable News Network. Peter is the host of CEO Corner at NECN and This Week in Business. Peter comes to broadcast journalism after a stellar career at the Boston Globe. Peter's stories at the Globe encompassed high-tech, business, local and state government, technology. Peter's stories are hard-hitting, insightful, and always controversial and thought-provoking. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Peter Howe.
Good morning. Thank you, Greg. I'm very impressed by that guy you described. So, thank you. It's wonderful to see all of you here this morning, and this is a great topic, and I'm very thankful to have the chance to moderate or to inflame, as the case may be. And let me just start off to sort of set the scene a little bit. Take you back about 8 years. I don't know how many of you would remember from the George W. Bush administration the scandal over the 16 words. And this was a reference to a 16-word passage that got added to the State of the Union address. The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa. 16 words led to years of controversy, were they true or not, led to talk of impeachment, led to undercover spy Valerie Plame Wilson on the cover of Vanity Fair magazine, much, much more, all from just 16 words. And the reason I bring those up is that I think that something that's hanging over our gathering today, something that's hanging over the civic discussion in Boston, especially with people interested in real estate and economic development, are 13 words. And those 13 words are, quote, "Honestly, if I were starting now, I would have just stayed in Boston." And I don't know how many of you, I'm seeing glimmers of recognition. These are 13 words from Mark Zuckerberg talking about Facebook. "Honestly, if I were starting now, I would have just stayed in Boston." This is about a month ago now when he was speaking out at Stanford University. And it got a lot of people thinking, what if this were Facebook.com serving 800 million people from Kendall Square or Cambridge or the Innovation District in Boston or both? And I would say compared to, if you know anything about the incredibly rigorous vetting process that goes into getting anything into a presidential State of the Union address, it's months and months of work by lots and lots of people. These were 13 words that kind of spontaneously erupted from a very rich college dropout's mouth. And Mark Zuckerberg, to his credit, has offered 2 or 3 different explanations of what he meant, including he was saying that at the time that Facebook was really ramping up, he really needed access to the startup, venture capitalist, Silicon Valley social infrastructure that he could only find in the Valley. He's also said he was just saying you can start a great company anywhere. Could be Boston, could be Palo Alto, could be anywhere. One of the problems with being worth several $billion is that the media tend to treat everything you say as brilliant, if not oracular. But what I do think, to his credit, Mark Zuckerberg achieved was he touched a nerve here in Boston like a dental implement hitting an inflamed tooth. And it's an issue that I think, to this city's credit, we beat ourselves up about a lot, and we hold ourselves to a very high standard, and we care about the future of this city, and we care about, are we doing enough, are we working hard enough, are we doing enough to stay competitive, are we doing enough to keep good companies here, are we doing enough to encourage them to stay here, and how do we make sure that we don't let the quote-unquote next Facebook get away. So with those 13 words over us, I look forward to a rich and interesting discussion on this whole topic of keeping Boston competitive to the year 2030 and beyond, and how we take care of doing that.